because I don't know. The Joaquin Phoenix Joker. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily like rooting for the Joker, but at the end,
but you understand it.
Yeah, but like also, it's almost like at the end when he shoots the guy and stuff. Like obviously, I think that's morally wrong, but it's kind of I get a tiny sense of satisfaction just because it's like, I don't know, he like won in some way.
Yeah, and we spent the whole movie with him. We spent the whole movie seeing the world through his eyes and understanding who he is as a person and getting to know his wants and his desires. And because the movie's well written, because it's well done, we are sympathetic to that understanding, to that sort of idea. So that's a great example of a protagonist who is morally bad still being relatable and still having an audience resonate with him.
It makes me wonder how far you could go with, like, if you can make someone understand someone who does even like the most heinous things. Like obviously you'll still think the stuff they're doing is reprehensible, but I don't know, it just makes you like, I guess, I don't know if hate them less is the right word.
It can get dangerous. Because here's the issue with things like that, and it's one of the reasons I'm actually not a big fan of movies like Joker and movies like Taxi Driver. Is another one. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's one of the issues that you can run into when you create a fully fleshed out, picture of a clearly bad person, so well realized and so well understood that we root for them, is that it can kind of create copycat people. It can kind of bring out some of the bad in you, and you have to be aware of that. You have to be very cautious of the message you're trying to put out into the world, because it's easier than you would think to accidentally put the wrong message into the world. I know I talk about Taxi Driver often because Scorsese wanted to make that movie as a kind of like, as a reflection, as a holding a mirror to the really kind of sick individuals in the world who feel trodden on, who feel like they have a greater purpose in life than they are currently on, and that the world is full of evil and corruption and bad, and maybe it's your responsibility to weed that out. Maybe you should take arms and get up and do it. And obviously that kind of person is really real and really dangerous. And this character, their kind of desire throughout the film is to assassinate a presidential candidate. But they spend so much time working on the character that Robert De Niro plays that you do understand him. And so there's a lot of people out there who have seen that movie, and instead of taking away the message that Scorsese wanted to tell, which is, this is what this kind of person ends up being like. Look at how bad of a person he is. Look at the shit he caused. Look at the chaos and the bloodshed and all of that. And don't be like that. Instead, people go to the movie and they would go, wow, he's a lot like me, but he actually took action. And look what happened. And then they go out and kill people.
Do you think people sometimes will see that understanding of the character and like associated with the actions being okay? And that could also
or at least inspiring. At least, maybe not okay, but because it's a touchy subject, because I don't believe that movies cause evil in people. I don't think that you can go from a good person and then watch a movie and shoot up a school. Yeah. However, I do think that art influences people and inspires people.
So like an already bad person,
someone who's already got everything they need inside them to be that kind of person, to be a Joker, but might have it dormant, might have it being like suppressed, and then seeing a successful story of the Joker shooting someone in the head and having all those people cheering for him and doing the smile. Wow, this is the greatest day of his life. Someone who's really damaged and who goes into that movie already having the feelings that the Joker has at the beginning of the film, then seeing this arc, this heroic arc for the Joker, and all he had to do was kill a couple people. Could result in some dark shit.
It kind of makes me think of, do you remember the show 13 Reasons Why?
Yeah.
I feel like, didn't that get a lot of criticism for a similar reason?
And that's the thing, is like, people looked at it, I think a lot of people misinterpreted it in the sense that like people were saying, the show is making people kill themselves. but it's more complicated than that. You know, it's not that it's not that the show made people who were not suicidal suddenly kill themselves. Yeah. It's that it made people who were feeling suicidal already see that it's possible, and here's all the things you can do to get back at the people who wronged you after your death. And it gave, here's what it is. It gave a roadmap. Because a lot of people like that know what they want, and they know where they are. They don't want to be where they are. They want to be where they want to be. They just don't know how to get there. And these, you know, people often see movies as inspiration, like I said, as a roadmap, and a lot of the time this is just for good. I've been inspired by movies all the time to like do good things, and I think that's far more common to walk out of a movie and be like, wow, that made me want to be a better person. That made me want to ask out this girl. That made me want to make a movie of my own, you know. But in dark individuals who are going through trauma, who are going through a dark period of their life, movies like Joker, shows like 13 Reasons Why can sometimes be the opposite of what they need.
Do you think then, like, let's say someone wants to make a movie or show that kind of struggles with these topics, what do you think a possible solution is?
The important thing is to depict the reality of what the consequences are. And I think, I think the story of Joker could have been told in a way that showed Joker failing, like, yes, he achieved his goals of killing people, but what did it do to him long term? Maybe the feeling of being covered in blood and having killed his inspiration, his idol. Once the trigger was pulled, he couldn't take it back, and suddenly he had just committed this horrendous crime. Or maybe he didn't regret it, and maybe we just see him as this horrendous. You really paint who he is through the people around him. I think a great way of doing that is by showing consequences, by showing the family grieving, by showing the devastation that you leave in your wake. Because you see with the fucking 15 shootings a week that happen in America, a lot of the shooters don't think of the people they're shooting as people. They think of them as targets. They think of them as ways to get famous or ways to get back at society. And something that's always incredibly effective for me, just in terms of really making the tragedy and the grief of a situation real, is seeing who the people are that they killed or that they hurt. Seeing this is when you hear 40 kids died in a school shooting, the horrendous thing at this point is that it's happened so often that we're kind of numb to it now. We go, that's awful, that's so horrendous, I wish they would pass some fucking gun laws or something, do something. But it's not as raw as it used to be. But then you see a picture of the 5-year-old. You see her smiling face. You see that she was interested in space and maybe wanted to be an astronaut someday. And suddenly it becomes so much more real, because you realize that was a real human being who had wants, who had desires, who had dreams. And their life is gone now. And this person took that away. And by showing the perspective only of the killer, only of the antagonist, you don't give people watching the consequence. And that's what you need to do. If you want to make a story about a dark individual, if you want to hold a mirror up to the darkness in people, you need to show the consequence. And you need to make people who can sympathize with that dark individual sympathize even further with the family of the lost loved ones. You need to make them sympathize with the cause. So I'm not saying make Robert De Niro more likable, but I'm saying maybe if Robert De Niro sucks and he's awful, sure, but he's got a daughter at home who now doesn't have a father.
Yeah, and I feel like the goal of sympathizing isn't just so you sympathize with the actions, but more you sympathize with the things that led up to the actions, so that you could feel like people maybe aren't just evil, but there's actual reasons for this, and there's ways to prevent it before it happens.
Yeah, because I think that it is it's real to tell this kinds of stories about people who are in dark places in their lives, who are, to tell stories about jokers and about Travis Bickle, I think is the name of the character, Taxi Driver. So those types of people, it is important to tell those stories because they happen, and we need to understand, and we need to show people who are feeling that way that they are understood and that they're not alone in feeling that way. But we also need to show them what the wrong thing to do is. And that's what I feel like Joker and Taxi Driver did not do, truly. And I think both of them tried to, but I think they reveled in the violence and the perspective of the hero in their elation at their success so much that it's hard to... some people can walk away feeling like that was a total victory and there was nothing wrong with what the character did because we understand them so well and we don't see the consequences. So if you want to tell a story like that, that's fine, and I think it's a good thing to do, but you need to be really careful in the message you're telling and in the way it can be interpreted by people who are not like you and are not as morally good as you.